Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who at their worst learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. Cameron Herold is known around the world as the CEO Whisperer. He's the mastermind behind hundreds of companies' exponential growth. He was an entrepreneur from day one and views his ADHD and bipolar as a gift. At age 21, he had 14 employees. By age 35, he'd helped build his first two $100 million companies. And by the age of 42, Cameron engineered 1-800-GOT-JUNK. He engineered that spectacular growth from 2 million to 106 million in revenue and at 3,100 employees. And he did that in just 6 years. His companies landed over 5,200 media placements in the same 6 years, including coverage on Oprah. Now, not only does Cameron know how to grow business, but his delivery from the stage is second to none. The current publisher of Forbes magazine stated Cameron Herold is the best speaker he's ever heard. When Cameron steps off the stage, he doesn't stop teaching. He's the author of the global best-selling business book, Double Double, in its 8th printing, and in multiple translations around the world. He's also the author of the top-selling books, Meetings Suck, Vivid Vision, Miracle Mornings for Entrepreneurs, and Free PR. I had so many questions for Cameron. Join in today and learn exactly how Cameron Herold leveled up and continually creates everything from nothing. Cameron, I am so excited to chat with you today. You've had so many successes. I have so many questions for you, and thanks for being here today with me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Natalie. Looking forward to it.
So I don't even know where to start because you have so many successes, but I'm assuming you weren't just born with a golden spoon in your mouth, that you didn't, you're joking before we started the interview. You said, yeah, your dad was an Olympic athlete and your mom was a model, supermodel. You were joking, obviously, but take us back. Like, who were you as a kid?
Wow. Yeah. I grew up in a very middle-class family. At times probably even lower middle class, not poor, but certainly middle class. My father was an entrepreneur and a bit of a hustler kind of entrepreneur, always trying to find something and sell something, but didn't really make it as an entrepreneur until I was in grade 9, I would say. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, it was just a very normal, average middle class life. I was groomed, though, to be an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur and both my grandfathers were entrepreneurs. So they raised us to be entrepreneurial. So my childhood was, and I always had that entrepreneurial DNA. I was always finding things and selling them, or being given something to go out and sell, or creating something and marketing it, and just doing lots of those little business ventures. I actually did a TED Talk that's on the main TED.com website about 10 years ago about raising kids as entrepreneurs. And
oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to link that
I
down.
talked about probably 16 different little entrepreneurial ventures I had as a child. So I was very entrepreneurial and also very into sports.
Very into sports too. Let me ask you about the entrepreneur as a kid, because a lot of people listening have kids that are creative. How do you groom someone to be an entrepreneur? And I know you have a whole TED Talk on it, but like, what are the things you said you were groomed to be an entrepreneur? Like, what were some things that your parents or your grandparents were doing that made you decide you're going to monetize these things or actually go out and sell, not just create?
Yeah, well, and when I grew up, it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship's only been cool for the last 20 years. It really only started to be cool around 1998, 99, the first rise of the dot-com era. Mm-hmm. So when I was being groomed, it was really kind of, we were materialistic and greedy and profit-centric. And even people in my family thought it was not cool that I was doing all these little entrepreneurial things. So it was very different. So my father, I think, probably less wanted us to be entrepreneurs and more wanted us to be entrepreneurial.
Okay.
So, and I think that's a real distinction, because I think 97% of people should never be an entrepreneur. They're not cut for it. They don't have the DNA for it. They don't have the tenacity for it. They don't have the leadership for it. But maybe they can be more entrepreneurial instead of waiting for things to be handed to them. But the things that they did for us were give us the confidence to speak in front of others, give us the confidence to sell and handle rejection, going door to door, running little businesses like newspaper routes and cutting grass for neighbors and shoveling snow for neighbors. And they would encourage us, but they didn't try to make it into some like big venture that the parents were over involved in. And I think nowadays parents are really over involved in their kids' little activities. If your kid's running a lemonade stand, which I did lots of, my parents never walked out the door. They were inside doing all the shit they had to do. They didn't come out and hover around my lemonade. I made my little sign. It looked like shit. I sat at the table. I waved at cars. I'd come in after a half hour going, nobody's stopping, and they would tell me what to do, and I'd go back out. But nowadays, the parent goes out and waves down their neighbors or phones their neighbors. I'm like, the kid's not learning anything. Run your own lemonade stand, mom, or run your own lemonade stand.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's a really important distinction, because you're right. You see a lot of like parents think, oh, my kid has to be entrepreneur, but they're doing it for them.
They're doing it for them. And then they buy this lemonade stand setup and then they market it. And it's like, your kid hasn't learned a thing. You didn't. So my mom charged me for the sugar. And she didn't charge me to rent the table, but she explained what renting a table would be. So if I sold lemonade and made $3, I had to pay her, 50 cents for the sugar. And I was always pissed off that it cost so much. And then she explained to me, and we'd go to the grocery store and I'd buy my own sugar. It was less than having to pay her. So she taught us that stuff. And my dad taught us that stuff. When I went door to door for a newspaper route and would come home crying because I knocked on 30 doors and no one hired me, he would coach me on how to go back and do it again, but he wouldn't go with me. He'd send me back out. So I learned from the failure. I learned from the struggle. I learned from the tenacity. I learned from asking for help. And I think today we really are over-parenting our kids, where we're not getting them to ask for help. We're doing it for them.
Gosh, that's powerful. I'm thinking of I have a 12-year-old, and I think that something that comes up for parents, and it is selfish in a lot of ways, but a lot of moms especially deal with this, with that people pleasing aspect. So they want to keep their kid happy. So they're thinking, I'll do it for them. I'll help them. But we're hurting them by doing that.
You're not teaching them a thing. And so what are you going to do when they're 23 years old and they're struggling at work? Are you going to go into their office and talk to their boss about how to treat them nicer?
Some moms do.
It's starting to happen right now. It's disgusting. I actually heard from a client the other day. I coach real companies with typically 50 to 500 employees. And one of my CEOs said that one of the parents showed up at work to talk to a manager. I'm like, are you fucking kidding? Like, I would have died if my parents ever showed up.
Yeah. That's funny. I've heard of that happening. That's funny.
So I think I really cut my teeth on, and again, I could give you 15 off the top of my head specific things that I did that were entrepreneurial little ventures by the time I was 16 years old.
That's amazing. How did you?
And some were only one day, right? They didn't have to be a 3-month thing. I didn't have to create a bloody website. Some were just, go door to door, collect coat hangers. And then my mom would drive me to dry cleaners and they would pay me recycling fees. So
that's amazing. And these were all your ideas, or did they brainstorm ideas with you?
Most of them were mine. The ones, and funny enough, I think the ones that were mine were the ones that were bigger successes. The ones that were my dad's, like selling license plate protectors door to door, I didn't want to do it. And it was a product of his that he couldn't sell. And I kind of knew that because I was 9. Whereas me going and diving in the ponds at the golf course and collecting all the golf balls from the ponds and washing them all and selling them to golfers was mine. And I was excited and I was keen. And so I think when I had my idea and they encouraged me to do it, it was more successful than they giving me the idea.
That makes sense. How did you not get resentful on the money part? I'm thinking through that. Like because some kids would hear, oh, I have to go make money. My parents are asking me to make money. Was that a thing that was coming up for you at all? Or was the drive money, or what was the drive? I got to spend it.
It was I got to go buy stuff. So like if I wanted cool things, I was also groomed at a very young age that, even though my parents started to have money when I was in high school, I was going to be paying for all my own university. So I paid every cent of university. And I graduated with no debt, and I bought a house the year after I graduated. So, but I was groomed to not expect a handout. And they would help me. I started a house painting business when I was in second year university, hired 12 kids to paint houses, and my mom hand wrote my phone number on 5,000 flyers because the flyers got printed without my phone number. So they would help.
Yeah.
But the expectation was I was doing it. They would encourage me, but the expectation was that I was going to be. So even at a young age, if I made, $6 selling comic books, I did comic book arbitrage where I'd buy comics from kids and I'd go to the rich area and I'd sell them. I'd set up a little table and sell them and make 2 to 3 times what I was buying.
That's amazing.
I would then take all that money and I'd go buy candy.
Yeah. So, it was your money. So they let you do what you wanted with it.
Yeah.
How were your grades with all this? Was school important? Did you?
No, it was terrible. I struggled in school. I'm very ADD. I have 17 of the 18 signs of attention deficit disorder. My ex-wife said if I was paying attention, I would have scored 18 out of the 18.
Yep.
I'm bipolar, so I'm on the spectrum for bipolar disorder, with mania and depression. I struggled in school because it was too slow and there was no point. And I understood there was no point. Like I understood in grade 6 why we're studying like Native Indians or a war that happened 200 years ago when I was excited about business. So I would spend my time reading about mysteries that I could solve or business ideas that I could think about. But going to class and trying to memorize stuff didn't matter to me. I liked math because I realized that it was about money. Like in my mind, learning about math was all about money. So in grade 10, I started investing in the stock market, grade 10. And I would call my stockbroker from a payphone because we didn't have cell phones. And I would phone, and I was day trading like as a 16-year-old.
Wow.
So I was interested in that. So I got 62% in high school. And then I went to the only university that accepted me, and I got again a 62% average there.
How were your parents around your grades? Like, did they, and I'm thinking of that too. Like
they wanted me to work harder, but they also understood that school didn't matter. I mean, I think today, all these parents that are pushing for A grades, no one's ever looked at your transcript ever.
Yeah.
Like no one's looked at yours. No one's looked at mine. No one will look at Jack's and Jill's. No one will ever care about your kid's transcript.
Yeah.
But what they'll care about is, were you in clubs? Were you in societies? Were you in sports? Were you in organizations? So, in high school, I played I was on the tennis team, the golf team, volleyball team, track and field, and cross country running in grade 13. We had grade 13 in our high school, in our province. So I had 5 sports, and I was on the student council. I was on the executive of the student council, and I was on the sports council, and I was like working.
So I know for parents, a lot of parents do get that the push for straight A's and B's aren't okay. But what about a kid that's like failing out of school? Like, especially when you list these things, the ADD and the bipolar, I was ADD. I am ADD as well. And I was a struggling student and I had D's through school as a kid. How do you what do you advise, or what would you say, looking back with what you know now, parents that have those kids getting D's? And I'm not talking about forcing for straight A's, but the D's are failing out of school. What would you say to that?
If your kids have been diagnosed with a learning difference, it's not a disorder. They learn differently. So there's, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners, and the school system doesn't really tailor itself to those types of learners. So kids may need a smaller classroom, get them out of the school and put them into one. Not necessarily a private school, but move the kids somewhere so that they can get that better education, or an education that's more like them. And then also let the kid know that it's about working hard and trying your best. It's not about getting A's, because what happens when you're a D student or a C student like you and I were is every day we're getting beat up. Every day our insecurities are getting built because of it. Every day we're being told we're stupid and we're not good enough. Whereas intuitively, we look around the room, we're like, I know I'm as smart as those people, but my grades aren't showing it.
Yeah.
Like, all the kids in high school were buying stuff from me, and yet they were the A students, and I was running around going, I just made $23 off them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I knew I was smart. And to this day, if I look back at all the superstar students, I probably make more than all of them combined.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
But emotionally, it played a role, or played a task on me, or whatever the word is, because I was beat up every single day. I think it's about giving your kid the confidence that they're okay, that they're not supposed to be great in school, giving them role models of people that never finished school, and giving them other activities to channel themselves to. Yeah. Finding out what, but get them interested in things.
That makes sense. So when was your first, like you started all these little businesses, and which was cool. You're already monetizing in grade school, basically. What was your first like real business? I know by age 21, you had some successes. Was that when it started?
Yeah. 20 years old, I started my house painting company. And when I was 20 or 21 years old, I had 12 full-time employees.
Wow.
And I ran that for 3 years while I was in university. I think my first summer I made $15,000 or $16,000 in profit, and that was in 1986.
Yeah.
Made about $30,000 each of the next 2 summers. And back in the mid 80s, to pay for a university in Canada was easy. So you just paid all that off. But I was doing operations, marketing, sales, production, time management, hiring, interviewing, selection, firing, everything back when I was in my early 20s.
And did you have a vision at that time, like what you wanted to create, or what did you know you'd be doing now, what you're doing?
No idea. And I don't think anybody knows what. I think that we got to take a little bit of the pressure off kids today too, that they're supposed to know what they're doing. There's no way, like none of the parents know what they're doing right now in our 40s and 50s, let alone did we know in our 20s.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's way too much pressure to put on kids to say that they need to know what their career is going to be when they're 20 years old.
Yeah.
So no, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur for me wasn't about the money. My dad took me to a golf course when I was about 16 years old, and we looked at all the people coming in at 12 o'clock. It was a Wednesday, and it was a guy who owned a car dealership, and a guy owned an accounting company, and a guy owned a clothing store, and a guy owned a construction company. And they were all playing golf. And then we played golf. And then like 4 hours later, we're sitting on the balcony and it's 5 o'clock. And I'm eating my fries and gravy and drinking my cherry Coke. And my dad's showing me all the people walking in. And this person was a teacher. And this one was a doctor. And this one was an accountant. And this one was a lawyer. And this guy worked at this company. He said, do you know the difference? And I said, yeah, people who run their own company get to golf in the middle of the day. And my dad said, you're right. People who run their own company control their time. And being an entrepreneur is about free time, not about money. So for me, good. I set up my businesses and my life to give me the time to have to myself versus being all about money. And the money becomes a byproduct.
That's powerful right there, because it is about time. You're right. And everyone's so focused on money when they want to become an entrepreneur. That's a theme that we hear. Wow. So talk to me about the 1-800-GOT-JUNK. How did that come about? And because that obviously you created a huge success out of that. How did that even come into your life? Did you have a vision for that?
It's funny that you just mentioned 1-800-GOT-JUNK, because when we were on the Oprah show in 2003, she did a large piece on 1-800-GOT-JUNK. When she finished her episode about us, she said, it's about time, because we were cleaning up people's life and giving them their free time back and giving them we were giving them. Anyway, so I got involved in 1-800-GOT-JUNK. My best friend had started the company 10 years before. He was up to about 2 million in sales after 11 years. And there were 14 employees at the head office. We had 12 franchises. And I came in to basically teach him how to be a franchisor and how to scale and build a franchise company. And when I left 6.5 years later, we were on a $126 million run rate. We had 3,100 employees system wide.
Wow.
330 franchisees in 4 countries. And we ranked as the number 2 company in Canada to work for.
It's incredible. I mean, just to you say it so nonchalant, like it just kind of happened, but that's so amazing to so many people. How did you figure out like how to do that? Like you obviously had the experience entrepreneurial, but were you always hyper-focused on systems? Like what made you unique at figuring things out that other people, like your friend might have stayed at the 2 million, maybe 3 million for years.
Yeah. In fact, we were texting each other last night. He said, I couldn't have done it without you. And I said, you probably would have, but it was more fun being able to do it together. And I left the company 13 years ago. So I was hyper-focused on 3 things.
Okay.
And I'll walk you through that. But I see the obvious where it's like in school, the answers were in the back of the textbook. So why read the whole textbook? Just study the last chapter, or talk to the teaching assistant and they'll give you a copy of the exam and study the exam. Like I saw the cheat sheets. I saw the shortcuts. And in business, everyone overcomplicates it. They're all like flies trying to get at a window where they're going to bang their head on the window and try harder to get that window. And there's a door just over to the right. Just turn and go out the door. It's open. So for me in business, I saw the shortcuts. I saw the obvious. And I would always work towards those shortcuts and those simple little systems. So the 3 things that I obsessed about that got our flywheel turning, the first one was that we had to take our business and make it a little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion. We had to get it into the zone of a cult. And that's where culture comes from. So culture is by design. It's not the massages and free lunch. So I worked really, really hard at turning the company into a cult. And that's why we became the number 2 company in Canada to work for. It's why we twice ranked number 1 in BC to work for. It's why we got so much of the press.
How did you figure that out though? Like, how did that come to you? Because that's like you just saying that is lots of light bulb moments for me. I'm all of a sudden I'm just thinking of all types of things successful with that.
My R&D stands for rip off and duplicate.
Okay.
So I take the best systems that the best companies are doing and I just do that. What drives me crazy about most people is they read a book, they read a book, they read a book, they read a book, they don't do anything. I mean, if you want to create raving fans, read books about creating raving fans and do what they tell you. So for me, and this is what I coach all these companies on globally now, is creating world-class company cultures. I've coached 4 companies in 4 different countries that rank number 1 in their country. I coached the current number 2 and number 12 to work for in the US on Glassdoor. So culture starts with alignment with vision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's around getting rid of all the assholes and hiring really great culture people. So you work with other A players.
Mm-hmm.
Most people think they've got an A-level team. At best, you're a B- or C+ team. So it's putting in place the right recruiting and interviewing and selection systems to hire. Then it's around giving people the support on their skills and on their confidence. So really growing, kind of like getting them up 2 sides of a ladder: the confidence up, skills up, confidence up, skills up. So you move them up. So coaching them on that, and then giving them really good open communication, where you're there to listen, you're there to talk, and that's really where culture comes from.
So I'm listening to you, and I'm noticing something that you're doing that everybody I've interviewed that's an ADD, or myself included, I see that we do this, but I don't do it to the level that I've created $100 million companies. So now I'm really curious here. What you're doing is you're taking something that feels complicated to others and you make it so simple. Like you listed off these bullets, like matter of fact, like anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. I'm wondering where that confidence level comes from, because I would say I take complicated things and simplify them, but I haven't been as successful as you. So
the confidence comes from, like people, the world is littered with coaches right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a real coach I've coached real companies. So I've coached 5 or 6 companies that have had $100 million exits. I coached a monarchy in the Middle East. I coached the CEO and the COO at Sprint. Like I've worked behind the scenes coaching real CEOs of real businesses.
Yeah.
The confidence comes from teaching them stuff and then watching them do it. Like I could list you company after company. One of my clients, InfoTrust, just ranked number 1 to work for in the United States by Ad Age magazine a week ago. Like I could go through, grasshopper.com, iContacts, Media Temple. I could give you company after company after company and show you when I started coaching them, and then watch the results on culture. So the confidence comes from, I've been doing it for 13 years.
So I believe that. And I also believe that you had a confidence before you even ventured into those, because I think most people would talk themselves out of even working with those companies.
Yeah, like 1-800-GOT-JUNK was the 4th company that I built.
Okay.
I hired Elon Musk's brother Kimball in 1993 to be a franchisee for me at College Pro Painters. That same summer, I hired his cousin Peter Reeve, who was the COO at Solar City, to be a franchisee. So I'd coached 120 entrepreneurs by the time I was 28 years old.
Wow.
But when I left College Pro as a franchisee, I then coached 120 of their franchisees for 4 years. So I, at a very, very young age, before coaching was even popular, I coached 120 entrepreneurs.
Cameron, did you ever have that, we talk about that voice in your head that's telling you can't or you're not good enough.
Always.
Did you ever deal with that? And how?
Always, even today. Even today, I deal with that negative self-talk and the insecurity of like, well, I'm just a guy and maybe I got lucky. And well, there were other people at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. There were other people on the team that were, maybe it was just we were on a trend, or maybe it was the uprise, all the time.
What do you do when you have that voice? Like, what do you do? Because so many people listen to that and you're not. So I want to know, what's the secret?
It's one of the core things that entrepreneurs have to do is protect their confidence. So a few things. One is to, practice gratitude. Second one is to, every time I set a goal, to praise myself for a goal I just got accomplished. So if I write down 3 things I want to do today, I cross off 3 things I just got done yesterday. If I set a goal of the next 2 things I'm going to do this month, I praise myself for 2 things I got done last month. And another one is to get yourself into mastermind groups and communities where you surround yourself with like-minded people to realize you're not the crazy one. We're all crazy.
Yeah.
But the entrepreneurial journey is tough. Life is tough. So you got to protect your own confidence.
So I hear that. When you're in masterminds, because another thing that could happen with people is they go to comparison mode. So they're hearing what you're saying right now. And they're like, I am surrounding myself. I'm doing these things, but gosh, these people are so much farther ahead of me. Did that ever come up for you, that someone was better than you, or comparison mode?
Yeah, it comes up. So again, I'm playing at a fairly elite level now, where if I go, I go to War Room or Genius Network or Maverick, Mastermind Talks, Baby Bathwater. I'm in all those groups. I just came back from Abundance 360. The ones that I really feel like, whoa, I am still fucking figuring this out, is I go to the main TED conference. I've been going to the main TED conference for 10 years. I walk into that room and I'm like, I don't even have any business being here, because Bill Gates is in the audience and Steve Jobs is in the audience and Al Gore is in the audience. Like the 1,800 attendees are the best of the best of the best. that's the one that really hits me on my confidence. The other ones I've slowly over the years started to realize, like, I've got some stuff where I can really hang with these people and I can really learn from these people. But I no longer compare against, I'm just worrying about me. So as long as I'm growing and I'm getting better and I'm learning and I'm like, that's good enough. Because there's always going to be someone who's better than me at something, like at everything, right? There's going to be a better speaker or a better interview guest or a better coach or a better athlete or a better looking or better hung, whatever. Like where somebody's bigger and better at everything.
Yeah.
But there's also enough stuff that I'm good at that I keep remembering that too.
So you clearly have the confidence and you have the experience to back all of that. Do you do anything? Do you talk to me a little bit about like your own personal development on that? Like, do you do any things? Like, do you meditate? Have you done hypnosis? Have you done anything to work on core beliefs to figure this out? Or is this just what you've practiced?
A lot of mine, yes, I have. Only in the last couple of years have I ever done any real kind of work with shaman and work with therapists and work on myself that way. And it was because I went through a really rough divorce 2.5 years ago. So only because of that I do a lot of the self work. Where my growth has come from is by truly being vulnerable. And I don't mean like going on Facebook and putting up, I'm being vulnerable. Which is really
I hate that.
It's such bullshit. What I mean is actually being vulnerable, where I go and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me?
Yeah.
So when I go to a Genius Network event and maybe I've just come off stage speaking at it, but then later in the afternoon, I'm like, by the way, I suck at this and I don't know how to do this. Can anybody help me? And people come over to help. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I'm glad you said that because I suck at this. It's given me confidence to say I don't know how to do something versus being worried that I didn't know how to do something.
Yeah, that's great.
So I used to be really, really insecure going to any small groups, like going to any masterminds or going to a cocktail party even. Like if you invited me, to your home for a dinner with 12 people that I didn't know, I would drive around the block 8 times before I came in.
Yeah.
But now that I tell people that and I realize everybody else is too, I'm like, oh, fuck it. I'll just go in the door.
Yeah. It's funny. People assume that people that are successful are total extroverts. But really they're usually introverts. They're just social or really good at what they do with that. Yeah. That's what I find. Okay. I want to talk about setbacks and failures. Have you had any?
Yeah. I'll give you one big one that hit me. So this was October of 2000. So going back 20 years, I was the second in command at a private currency company, similar to what Bitcoin is doing today. We were doing it 20 years ago, where we had Starwood Hotels, Avis Rent-A-Car budget using our digital currency instead of US dollar. We were growing very, very rapidly. We'd sold the company about 6 months before for a lot of money, but the stock market crashed. So the 64 million that we sold for was now worth 3 million. And I was stressed out of my mind. And a guy in the elevator tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you okay?" And I turned around to say yes. And I collapsed and started shaking and crying, like sobbing.
Whoa.
And I was having a bit nervous breakdown. And then, picked myself up, went to lunch, had dinner that night, whatever. About a week later, I went to the doctor for a physical. And it was because I was buying a house and I needed to get insurance and needed, life insurance, or needed medical to get my insurance set up, whatever it was. So the doctor said, "How's it going?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a little stressed. I got this metallic taste at the back of my neck, almost like I was chewing on tinfoil, aluminum foil kind of taste at the back of my neck." And he said, "That's weird." He said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, my mom's got cancer and is terminal. She'll probably dying this year. And my wife is pregnant with our first child. We just got married 4 months ago. The company that we'd sold 7 months ago collapsed just after the sale, and the $64 million valuation is now worth $3 million. So I've pretty much lost what I had made. And I'm going back and forth to Seattle to Vancouver every week. And I've got my first mortgage, just bought a house. My wife's quit her job, and I'm quitting my job to move back to Canada. Other than that, everything's good. And he looked at me, he's like, "What do you mean other than that, everything's good?"
Yeah.
He gave me this checklist. And I had to check off all these items on the list of things that were happening to me. And I think it was like, if you got 50 points, you had a 50% chance of a heart attack. If you got 150 points, you had a 90% chance. I had 435 points.
Whoa.
I was clinically redlining, and I had something like seven of the top 10 most stressful events happening simultaneously.
Oh my gosh.
So I thought I was fine, but the metallic taste at the back of my neck was a chemical secretion being caused by stress. And I
That's
thought I was
wild.
okay. So I was written up in the Wall Street Journal that October as someone whose career went really, really fast, flamed out with stress. And that's when I decided to kind of start to turn my life around and, get my shit together.
So
And I
Karen,
got cognizant. I started to think about the signs that I was feeling.
when you were in that, before you went to the doctor for the metallic test and figured this out, I want to know what your mindset was around that. Like you said, you had $35 million loss. You had all these things going on. Were you thinking then, like, I failed? Were you thinking I'm figuring this out? Like, what was the mindset there? And then I want to talk about
I went to get just a normal physical. I wasn't even going to get the metallic taste checked out. I was oblivious. I was oblivious to the fact that I was stressed because I would just work harder. I was the fly trying to get out the window.
Were you worried? Did you think were you worried that you had to figure this out? Or
No, I was just worried. I was just working harder and then drinking at night to kill the pain.
Got it.
We'd go out and have a really nice steak dinner and I'd drink red wine and I'd finish with Grand Marnier and I'd get up in the morning and do it again. I lived across the street from the office, so I'd walk over. I wasn't drinking coffee all morning because I was tired from drinking wine the night before.
So you're head down trying to figure it out and then numbing out at night to go to sleep and not worry about it.
I was oblivious that there was a problem.
Really? Okay. So, but that's interesting right there. And that was important because I think I know that's not ideal for your health, but I'm thinking some people, they're so stuck in the problem that that's the failure. They then stop. You were never acknowledging the problem. You were so focused on the vision. So now the question is, how do you do that and not have the health problem happen?
I've become aware to the signals now that my body's sending me, whether it's my breath is showing me that I'm manic, or the speed of my voice is showing me that I'm manic, or if I'm cutting people off in discussion, showing me that I'm manic. Or if I get to the end of the day and I haven't eaten, it's showing me that I'm in a period of mania or high stress or taking breaks. So now I've noticed signals. I notice myself. And then what I do is I start putting things into my calendar to break up my day and break up my week and break up my month. So I pre-plan vacations. Last year I took 10 weeks off where I didn't work. I went to Europe for 5 weeks. And then 2 months later, I went back to Europe for 2 weeks. So I take frequent breaks. I take frequent time off. I control my own schedule. I put my kids' stuff into my calendar. I put, physical activity into the calendar. My assistant books stuff like my, guitar lesson or my workouts with a trainer. So I force myself to do the things that aren't natural for me.
Wow. I do have I feel like I need to talk to you for days.
I never work nights. I also never work nights and I never work weekends now.
Okay. So you just shut it down. Even it doesn't matter what's happening.
Yeah, because you're never going to catch up. That's a lie. Whenever people are saying, I'm going to catch up, bullshit. You're avoiding your wife. You're avoiding your kids. You're avoiding stress. You're avoiding something because you'll never catch up. As soon as you get your list done, you're going to add to your list.
So true.
You're going to set more goals. So I really allow myself one night a quarter to actually catch up, and maybe one weekend day a quarter to actually catch up on something.
Just to make you feel good about that you think you've caught up, but like you said, you're still at it.
Catch up. Like there might be something but otherwise it's like bullshit. Go work out, go for a bike ride.
Yeah. Enjoy your life. I'm curious your thoughts on medication. Like you said two very serious things. ADHD and bipolar. Did you ever do medication? Are you a fan of it? Not a fan of it?
I did medication for 4 months for depression and I got off of it soon after because I didn't want to be on it. And I did it because of the divorce stuff where I was crying constantly and I was really in a bad place where I needed something to get me back to level in addition to the yoga and running I was doing.
Okay.
So, but no, I actually don't believe in it. What I believe in is really, eating more nutritiously. Right? I'm actually moving towards being more plant-based right now and getting rid of dairy. So just really looking at your health and getting some fitness and hanging out with friends and practicing gratitude and doing a 5-minute journal and like really practicing self-care, which is tough when you're a parent too, right? I've got 2 kids.
Do you see any of this in your kids?
My one son definitely has depression or struggles with some of that. So I'm pushing him now to recognize it and to get exercise. And he also is like with the ADD. I think both my kids have a little bit of the ADD. I would never medicate them because it's a superpower. Yeah, I agree with that. It's not a disorder. It allows you to see everything. I'm hyper aware of time and the economy and the market and my customers and the schedule and what's important. But I don't get too bogged down in the details that I lose track of what's really important. So I delegate faster.
I agree with you. At one point I was on ADD medicine, and I'll tell you, it took away all my creativity and it had me hyper focusing on the wrong things.
Right.
Like all of a sudden I could do spreadsheets, but who cares? It wasn't like big picture.
Right. It's not the right stuff at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then what about the bipolar though? Because I know a lot of people listening, either a kid or themselves are medicated on that. You believe that also can be fixed with or managed with nutrition and exercise?
Well, managed, but also recognizing that it's not actually a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So the mania is the excitement that people follow.
Okay.
It's the energy, it's the enthusiasm, it's the quick start, it's the idea to execution really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That's very entrepreneurial. That's a need. Like, have you ever found an accountant that inspires you?
Heck no.
Or an engineer who inspires you? Or a teacher? Like, they're all fucking boring and flat. But entrepreneurs have that manic, hypomanic edge.
The good ones do.
It's why people quit their job to follow us. It's why people invest in the company. It's because of that mania. The stress and depression is simply us course correcting or adrenal burnout, where we actually need to give ourselves a break. And if we recognize that the stress and depression is simply us needing to plug our fucking selves in and not beat ourselves up about it. What happens though is entrepreneurs try to run at mania all the time, and then they feel like they're depressed and it's a problem. No, it's like your phone is dead. Plug it in.
Gosh, that's so good. It's so funny because as you're saying that, some light bulb moments that, like, if you look at the norm or what people accept as the status quo, like the norm is trying to take people that have these gifts and say, oh, that's broken. Let's put you into the norm. But what you're saying makes sense. Yeah.
Only 3% of the population is truly bipolar.
Okay.
Only 3% of the population are entrepreneurs. Maybe the correlation is getting people that are bipolar and make them run companies and give them the skills to do that. I did Tim Ferriss did a blog post about me called The Highs and Lows of CEOs, or the emotional roller coaster.
Okay.
I think it was the roller coaster of CEOs 10 years ago on this whole concept of bipolar. He and I had been talking at Burning Man, and I was walking him through all this concept, and he loved it.
So good. You're making me feel better about myself right now. I'll tell you that right now.
We're normal. But the school system tells us we're fucked up. Well, you know what? I don't want to be like the teachers. I went back to my 25th high school reunion, and you take all my high school teachers and pull them together, and I make more money than all of them.
Yep.
Why did I want to be like them? Because I didn't fit in, and I couldn't study, and I couldn't memorize stuff. I still don't care about the War of 1812.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
The only thing I remember is it was in 1812.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm completely with you. And as a parent, I get stuck and torn because I have the school system talking about my daughter. You know, I get all that. Yeah. So, but I can see how I've thrived for the same reasons that you're saying. And I was not a good student at all. Wow. Okay. So you 1-800 got junk. You've got all these great successes behind you. What led you to not ultimately wanting to like run your own thing, but coach others and help others build?
Well, I do. I run my own company today. I've got a team of employees, and I've got outsourced contractors, and I've got freelancers that do work. So I run a group called the COO Alliance. Mm-hmm. I run the only network of its kind in the world for the second in command. It's kind of like the Genius Network for COOs.
Okay.
You need a minimum of 5 million in revenue for your second in command to join. So I have that organization, and then I've got my 5 books that I've written, and I've got my speaking events, and so I have a company today. I just don't want to sit in a business and have to go to an office and be around employees constantly. So my team, like one of my team is over in Portugal for 3 months. One of my other teams in Scottsdale. One of my other ones is up in Northern Canada.
So what's interesting about what you just said, I hope people pick this up. It's you do extreme focus on things, but it's not that you had to focus on one thing. Like you can be creative and manage, work with, be in part of different things and put your attention in those. That's what I'm hearing. Like you have a lot of different interests.
I see how they all fit together. Like my core purpose is helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. Mm-hmm. So if me helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen is what I do, the way I do it, how I do that is by writing books. I've written 5 books that are on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. Mm-hmm. I've got a second in command podcast that we only interview COOs. That helps entrepreneurial companies. Mm-hmm. I do speaking events, teaching people how to have the shortcuts to grow their companies. I coach CEOs and their executive teams. And I've got the COO Alliance, which grows second in command. So all of that helps entrepreneurs make their dreams happen.
Yeah, I love it. So good. So good. Talk to me a little bit about when you had a personal setback. Like you mentioned, you had a divorce. It took a lot on you. How did that impact business, your vision, all of those things, having a personal setback like that?
That was probably the hardest time of my life in terms of a real setback. I mean, it was hard when my mom died 18 years ago, but I'd say the second divorce that I went through was even worse than anything I'd gone through in terms of personal pain and ripping my heart out from someone that I was madly in love with. It took a lot of time of me working with a therapist to talk through it, working with a shaman. I did 9 or 10 sessions with a shaman, 52 sessions with a very, very high-end marriage counselor.
When you say a shaman, were you doing plant-based medicine with it, or just
shamanic healing and talking? Okay. I've done plant-based medicine as well for years, but no, it wasn't. And I got into yoga. I was doing yoga 3 days a week. I was running 3 days a week. I was doing a 5-minute journal, like a gratitude journal every day.
Did you pause business stuff when you were dealing with this and managing that, or was it still working simultaneously?
Kind of. I didn't want to, but I had to. So yeah, some stuff just kind of went off onto the side a little bit.
So what happened what did you learn from all that experience? Like here you had a huge personal setback. You had to separate work, put your life, actually your personal stuff as a priority. What did you learn from all that?
The big one I learned, and I've actually done an exercise now at every single COO Alliance event for the last 2 years. We do 5 events a year. The big one was that everyone, regardless of the position they're in, is really deeply struggling with something today. They're struggling with something in their health or their relationship or their fitness level or a marriage or kids or finances. But every single person is really, really deeply struggling with something. And it kind of gave me the perspective that I needed to remember that instead of being so hyper-focused always on the goal or driving towards something or something going wrong. Because I think as entrepreneurs, we often notice all the things that are going wrong. For me, it was just being cognizant the fact that people were always doing their best. They were trying their best, but sometimes there was some shit going on that was really impacting their ability to think or perform or show up, et cetera.
So good. So good. You said something at the beginning of this interview that I want to circle back to, because a lot of people think they want to be an entrepreneur. And you said there's a difference between being entrepreneurial and being an entrepreneur, and only 3% really are cut out to be an entrepreneur. Can you just talk a little bit about that and when people should know, like, hey, I should stick in this or I shouldn't stick in this?
Yeah, strangely, I actually covered it in my TEDx talk as well about these raising entrepreneurial kids. Was I talk about thing 1 and thing 2, that it's kind of, you need 2 things to be entrepreneur.
Okay.
You need to have the entrepreneurial DNA. We talked about bipolar as the mania of people following you. That energy is something that you need. I think people that are so flat on energy can't be, because they can't attract suppliers, can't attract customers, can't attract employees. So you need that kind of mania side of you. Second thing is you need to be a strong leader. You need to be able to lead yourself, lead others, lead suppliers, etc. You need to be very tenacious, the drive to overcome and to succeed. And you need to be very goal oriented and driving towards goals and having a preference to set goals and crossing them off. You need to be able to think on your feet and problem solve, and to notice trends and opportunities, and to rip off and duplicate. All of those are entrepreneurial DNA traits that you can learn them, but I think in a lot of ways you either have them or you don't.
So that first thing you mentioned, the entrepreneurial DNA, I think it sounds like also that could work if you have like that, if you're talking about the integrator and a visionary, that could also work if you have a strong integrator that is the strong leader and goal oriented and the problem solver, I'm assuming. Or do you feel
the CEO still has to be able to lead people. They have to be able to attract people. They have to be able to, again, lead themselves, lead suppliers. So the entrepreneur needs to have those traits. What they don't need to be good at is planning. You can hire for that. You don't need to be good at financials. You can hire for that. You don't need to be good at marketing. You can hire for that. The business skills you can hire for, but the entrepreneurial DNA traits you need. It's why, again, most entrepreneurial CEOs or most entrepreneurs have ADD.
Yeah.
It's not a disorder. It wires us to notice trends, notice opportunities, notice our schedule, notice stuff that needs to be done, to see everything that's happening and not get too obsessed with something. Engineers don't have ADD. Engineers are very focused. They can be very linear, right? So I think there's a DNA that makes an entrepreneur. And then you have the entrepreneurial skills, speaking skills, problem solving skills, analytical skills. Those can all be taught.
So good. So good.
So I think that the key is that parents need to identify, or people need to identify, do I have the DNA to be an entrepreneur? If I do, what are the entrepreneurial skills I can also learn? But if you don't have the entrepreneurial DNA, stop it. Like, you shouldn't be trying.
Yeah. I'm with you. That's good. And it's funny because I can think of a lot of people really pushing to be an entrepreneur, but they don't have any of that in them. And they're applying it the way they approach math in school. Like, if I just practice it, if I just do more of it.
It's no different. It's exactly the same, by the way, that you either have an artistic DNA that you're artistic, or you don't. Like, there's kids that were artistic when they were young. That's an artistic DNA. I sucked as an artist. I still suck. I can practice it. I would always suck at it. You could be musical, right? There's kids who are very musical. They're always singing, or they understand. But like, that ain't me. I can't carry a tune to save my life. I can't read music. I can't focus on it. I don't understand it. I never listen to the words when I hear songs. I like it, but I could learn how to play guitar, but I'll never be Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
Right. So, or there's people that are very analytical that might be good in engineering or math. So I think it's really dangerous to try to take someone who doesn't have the DNA and make them that.
Yeah, so good.
It's just become trendy, unfortunately. Now being an entrepreneur is trendy.
Yeah, it's the thing. You're right. Because I grew up in the 80s too. I was born in 71. So the same thing. I remember entrepreneurship was weird, and now it's like the normal thing, especially in California.
Only in one book prior to 1998 was the entrepreneur ever considered cool. It was in Atlas Shrugged's Good to Great, or in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
Other than that, the entrepreneur was never the hero.
Yeah. So there's a question I typically ask guests, but I'm going to change it for you. I usually ask, if you're in your own personal rock bottom, what are the things you would need to do to level up and create everything from nothing? But I want to ask you a different question based on this. If you're in a business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're in a business that's not doing well, like you've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, it is not doing well, what would you tell that person?
I would tell them to come up with a vivid vision of what your business looks and feels like in 3 years.
Okay.
So a real description of your entire company 3 years out. Describe every aspect of it, what it looks like, what it acts like, what it feels like. Describe marketing, describe operations, describe sales, describe what your customers saying. Really come up with a 4-page written description of your company 3 years from now.
Okay.
And then surround yourself by some really smart, trusted people to come up with a plan to make that come true. And then really ask those people to tell you the god-awful truth of if there's a real business there.
So good.
If you feel there is, looking at that plan, then you'll be able to make that happen. But sometimes that entrepreneurial DNA has to kick in, that even if 7 people are telling you no, if you can see the vision and you get the plan, you'll be able to execute it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just like, but you need to see the plan to make your own vision come true.
So good. So good. And I can tell you from the conversations I've had, many have not done this. So that is gold advice.
Or they have a vision in their mind, but it's never been articulated in a way that others can fact check it with you or help you with it.
That's amazing. You know what's funny, Cameron? Coming from the space of fat loss and nutrition and all of that, I would say it's the same thing with that. Like, people that are struggling to change their health or their body, they have to have that vision of what that 3-year plan looks like as well. I feel like it's the same with all things.
Well, the first part is the 3-year vision of what you look like in 3 years. So what's your health look like? What's your fitness level look like? What's your diet look like? And then it's how the fuck do I make that happen? I know where I am today. How do I reverse engineer that? Other smart people can help you put that plan in place to get where you're going. But if they don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Totally. Oh, this is so good. Cameron, where can people find you? Obviously, you've got books. People can find your books anywhere. And then how can people work with you, get in touch with you, learn from you?
Yeah, definitely check out the COO Alliance if you're running a company of 5 million or greater. And then they should all take a look and subscribe to the Second in Command podcast, because we only interview the second in commands of amazing companies. Okay. And then all the information and all my books are on Amazon. Amazing. And CameronHerold.com would be my main website. And if you're not making $5 million a year, you can learn from your books. Is that where you would tell people to start? Yeah, for now, just absorb all the content that's in the books. And I really give it all away in there too. So I've written. So good. I co-authored The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs with Hal Elrod. I wrote Double Double, Meetings Suck, Vivid Vision. And then my newest one is called Free PR. I'm getting all those books today. Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks so much. Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's
how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at Natalie Jill Fit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.